Hello, and welcome to Meet the Candidates for the Village of Mamaroneck. I'm honored to have with me today the Village of Mamaroneck Mayor, Norman Rosenblum, the Deputy Mayor and Village of Mamaroneck Trustee, Lou Santoro. My name is Bill Villanova, and I'll be your moderator today and interviewer. And I'd like to have our candidates share with you a little bit about themselves before we go into our discussion. Lou.
Yes, how you doing, Bill? Thanks once again, fourth time. You've helped us host the show, which is great. Lou Santoro, I've been trustee for 6 years now, deputy mayor for 6 years, lifelong resident of the Village of Mamaroneck. I enjoy what I'm doing. People ask me, why are you still doing this? And I said, well, we enjoy what we're doing and we still have more to accomplish. Each year as we get more involved, we take on more projects and more accomplishments, and I feel like we still have a few more to continue to move forward with the Village of Mamaroneck.
I agree. And the one thing that I always get from you and from Mayor Rosenblum is the energy that you bring to the Friendly Village. And that energy, you know, really, it doesn't end. It's endless, really. And we have a great opportunity here to keep our village, the Village of Mamaroneck, going forward by electing both you and Norm again. Norm.
I appreciate it. As follow-up with Lou, you definitely are a good luck charm. But it also is more symbolic. Also, the fact that you are the deputy supervisor of the town of Rye, in which we work very closely. There are agreements and disagreements on any level of government, but it shows that you can certainly work together. And why am I running? I love being mayor. I love working with Lou. And the real part is because the reason you love it is the people in the Village of Mamaroneck, the volunteers. The great ideas and the accomplishments which we're going to be going over in the last 6 years are a result of not ideas directly from Lou or I. We have certainly some input to it, but it comes from the people in the Village of Mamaroneck. They come up with fantastic ideas, and we help coordinate, mitigate, and facilitate that to come. And we'll talk about this, and we'll continue. There's a lot of things happening in the Village of Mamaroneck, and as we go through, we'll note a reason why for the past 6 years, on each one of our terms, we've been rated #1 in New York State by 3 separate organizations, which I'm very proud of. And on behalf of all the village and the volunteers, I'm proud of it.
You know, you mentioned about the opportunity to facilitate, and it's the ideas that that your team pulls together. It's being proactive within the community. It's being proactive to pull special teams together in committees and to capitalize on these concepts to make the Village of Mamaroneck a great place to live, a great place to have a business, but more importantly, a great place to spend a day. And everybody spends their time, I've seen all summer long, down at the parks. And I know there's been great improvements that have happened there. And Norm, what can you tell us about the parks? I know there's been some great improvements.
Well, what Lou and I did, we championed the idea, and we were successful in getting it. The Parks Department separated, or the parks workers separated from the DPW. Not that there's anything wrong with DPW, but the parks in the Village of Mamaroneck, we have 7 parks, and particularly Harbor Island, which is, of course, everyone calls the jewel of Mamaroneck, which is true, was underutilized, and it was not in the best of shape. We did get complaints, and we were able to actually start and create the Parks Department, which when I was a trustee from 1980 to 82, it was a separate Parks Department. And I can tell you the end result is that people have told me that have been lifetime residents, as myself, have said the park has never looked so good. The facilities are fantastic. We bought new equipment and so on. And the proof of the pudding is that several months ago, Harbor Island Park was rated as #1 in Westchester County. So again, it's not because of us. We may have helped facilitate it with the new Parks Department, but Barry Castarella and the rest of the crew down there have done a fantastic job. It's just amazing, and it thrills me to be able to be associated with men and women like that. It's just great.
One other point to carry on, 4 years ago, we sat down with the union from the Village of Mamaroneck, CSCA, and we said, you know, we'd like to see if we can get guys to work on the weekends, because the parks are very busy on Saturday and Sunday. And they sat down with us and they worked with us where the Parks Department will have coverage 7 days a week. There'll be 2 guys on Saturday, 2 guys on Sunday. They rake the beach, they do the garbage, they do the parks. Then they take off 2 days during the week. So there's no overtime involved, there's no cost to the taxpayers involved. And we have coverage 7 days a week down at the harbor.
That's powerful, and the idea to think outside the box and have this discussion with the union, and to come up to with a plan where you can have coverage, manpower, woman power, 7 days a week at the parks is awesome. And it's not only about having the people there; it's about giving them the proper tools so they can make the park and make the village the best that it can be. So the investment in the equipment for beach maintenance, for field maintenance, that's equally important. So it's not just asking the employees to do more,
Right.
but it's also giving the employees the valuable equipment they need to do their job right.
And that's a good point, because the Parks Department got together and they made a list, what we call a wish list of equipment that they needed. Some equipment was 30 and 40 years old, and little by little each year under capital improvements, we've replaced a lot of equipment. We just approved with the board a new Warren Avenue Park.
Avenue Park, right.
It'll cost about $150,000, and that's going to be the new rubber base, all new equipment, and everything like that. And the people are ecstatic over it. But we got those ideas from the people that live in the area who requested it, sent us a letter and said, our park is long overdue. We need it to get fixed, and we ran with it, and it's getting done. And construction will probably start in about 2 or 3 weeks.
It's being responsive to the community. That's part of
Absolutely.
being an elected official, is being the voice of the people and having the wherewithal to act on those concerns.
And also listening, I'll interject, from our employees themselves. We ended up having a major problem and a major concern in the village of Mamaroneck, and still exists somewhat, of the geese and the waste that's down there. While it's controversial, the fact of the matter is it is a health concern. I would say 98% out of 100 people are concerned, especially with the kids down there. We bought a big vacuum machine, basically what it is, and we also continued our USDA contract of oiling the egg. So again, it all helps. And it's, like you said, is the input not only from the residents, but your employees. The employees on several occasions, is not necessarily going to, have come back to us when we institute policies, and they've honed it down and made it much more realistic and functional. So we have great employees. These guys are terrific, especially in the DPW or parks. Right now it's in the summer, so we're talking about DPW, not involved as much as the Parks Department, but coming soon, probably with El Nino, we're looking for another heavy winter. And I can tell you that the DPW in the village of Mamaroneck is number one. I compare it to anybody. If you came down in any snowstorm, our streets were clean and wide open. So again, it's just a good idea.
And also the coordination we have with the police department, our volunteer ambulance corps, with the fire department and DPW and parks. Everybody just works together.
Speaking about employees, we have a new addition to the staff of the rec department. Let's talk about her.
Oh, absolutely. I'll even turn it over to Lou, because he is the liaison to the rec department. But I will tell you, as the chief elected official in the village of Mamaroneck, I would like to brag about Sandy Corcatsis, not even mention her. What she has done for the recreation department is absolutely phenomenal. We will continue to be number one. She just told us that she's instituting programs, all types, for little kids programs. She's running the block parties that she took over and did. The success of the camp is phenomenal. It's grown to the point where we might even have to look for things. And she's just amazing. And the great part is we had our first wedding down in Harbor Island, vis-a-vis the rec department, and we set it up. It's just great. In other words, it's still the friendly village. It's expanding as the friendly village. And I'm very thankful to have a chance to run and help coordinate as we did the last 3 terms. I'm looking forward to it. It's a very exciting, vibrant community.
Lou, talk to us about the expanded use of the rec department underneath Sandy. And some
well,
things
here's a person who's been on maybe about 2 years now. She worked for the city of Yonkers, and now she's employed by the village, and she just keeps instituting policies. They're her ideas. This year we had kayaking down the harbor, which we never had before. We had paddle boats rentals down the harbor. We had weddings down the harbor. We've had beach parties down there. We've had we got the wine festival coming up, the beer festival coming up. And actually, in 3 weeks, she started a pre-K program down there for 3 to 5-year-olds,
Right.
from 9 to 11:30, and then extended hours from 11:30 to 1:30, 1:30 to 3:30. You know, and all the information is on the website. It's a great deal. It's like $295 a session and stuff like that. And it's listening to the community, having the people who are in charge using their expertise and doing what they're doing. For us, it's easy. We just sit back and, you know, we say, okay, go with it.
And how helpful is that to families, new young families moving in, to have the kids have the service? I know from my own daughter up in Rhode Island and speaking with a lot of people, one of the great concerns of young couples with young kids, what are they going to do if they work and they need time and so on? So this is another service offered by the Village of Mamaroneck, and much more economical, and I'm sure, than some of these daycare centers that the kids go to.
Yeah.
It's just great. And I'd like to throw in, since we're talking about Harbor Islands, the Harbor Island Conservancy.
Yes.
This group is symbolic, not the best, but symbolic of all the volunteer groups in the Village of Mamaroneck. Certainly one of the best. They use their private citizens, they use their own money, their own time. And if you go down to Harbor Island and you look at the brand new entrance and the flowers, that's up to them.
Yeah.
They did that, working with the Village of Mamaroneck.
The gazebo.
The new gazebo they put in, the play center for the kids. They put another one on Orienta Avenue. The new entrances off Orienta and the Post Road, Harbor Island Conservancy. And I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that they have donated, and I just can't thank them enough. I go through, there's 3 people predominantly. It's John Ferris,
Fred Long.
Fred Fred Longacre.
And his wife.
And his wife. And there's other people involved. I don't want to get trapped into that, but it's just symbolic. They give their own time. It's just amazing.
Their own time and their own ideas.
Right.
And come to us and say, we'd like to do this. And they go with it.
Years ago, you know, they came up with that term, staycation. It's almost like they were thinking of the Village of Mamaroneck and Harbor Island and the Village of Mamaroneck community as a whole. Where can you live, work, and still enjoy, you know, a beautiful harbor? You know, as far as harbors go and the parks, I have to agree with you. And I'm a Port Chester boy, and I love my community as much as you love Mamaroneck.
Right.
But the Village of Mamaroneck does have a beautiful harbor, beautiful waterfront, and it's very inviting, not only to the residents of Mamaroneck, but the residents throughout New York State and Westchester County.
Exactly.
Since we're talking about the harbor, let's also talk about the Marine Education Center. I know there are 2 people that are near and dear to your heart, Catherine and Jim, and what
Catherine
they do
and Jim
down there.
Desmond, absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, it was interesting, and it's a, you know, catch-22 keeps going around in the same circle. I was at some function, and Catherine and Jim were there, and they talked about they've been trying for 10 or 15 years to have an education center, marine education center in the Village of Mamaroneck. And I said, so why don't we have it? And without going into a long dissertation, whatever it was, you didn't get the support. Well, I can tell you within 3 months, we found a site. It was fixed by the Parks Department and a DPW. The Museum Education Center was opened up 3 years ago. Actually, this Saturday, it will be the closing of this season, and the increase in number of kids that are here are phenomenal. And again, another example of people coming in. I would believe that eventually that you can't depend just on 2 people to run it, or it actually isn't fair to them. And the Village of Mamaroneck, I believe, should take it over and again be part of the recreation department. And they were part of the summer program, which is good. But there's even more effect, because this is an effect that we have on the children, which are the future of this
village,
community.
right.
And we want them to be aware of their own environment. And we work with a group called Save the Sound, which now moves into the Village of Mamaroneck. As a kid, always swam down there with Steve Johnson. Used to go fishing all the time. Used to have giant horseshoe crabs. Used to go eeling and all kinds of stuff. And unfortunately, that's not there. And some even the hard-shelled fish and clams, stuff like that, you can't eat anymore. But eventually, if we keep doing programs like this, I have the greatest hope that we'll turn it around.
And Lou, you even mentioned Sarah Evans. She was involved, and all the volunteers.
Yeah. And the thing is, they're involved in numerous committees. It's just not one committee.
Right.
Whether it's a Council of the Arts, or it's the Tree Committee, or Committee for the Environment, or the Marine Center. it's phenomenal. You think we have energy? You should see these people. The energy they have. It's like, you just sit there and like, oh man, they ever going to slow down? And it doesn't happen. It just says the more stuff they do, the more they get energized, and they keep going with it, and it's paying off. The residents, are very fortunate to have these people getting involved and doing the things. And we've gotten a lot of new people that moved into the community getting involved. On the rec committee, we have some new people. On our tree committee, we have some new people. Our budget committee, we have some new residents are getting involved, calling up saying we want to be involved, and we'll take them,
That's what makes a great community. If you live in your community and maybe you work outside of the village and all you do is you live here and you're not involved, it's a limited impact. And I guess some people may not get the full value of the community. But people and families that are living here, children are going to school, and they're now involved on different committees and organizations within the village, that brings a certain sense of
a typical
community.
thing that the mayor started 6 years ago was the mayor's report at the meetings. And this past year we had the #1 state women's field hockey team championship. We had #1 baseball team for the 3rd time in the last 7 years. We had a state championship in wrestler, tennis.
And this Rhinebeck
and Mamaroneck. So what do we do?
Most of them go
they
to
get
the
invited
state
to the
level. It's
meeting. They
unbelievable.
get to a board meeting. They come there, and the mayor hands them a proclamation. They talk about themselves, and you're sitting up there and seeing these kids absorbing this, and the glow on their faces is priceless.
Well, what it is this is not a bedroom community, as you sort of described before.
Yeah.
This is a true community. It's a friendly village. People are involved. I've said it many times, and I firmly believe this as third generation. You can come here and find any group or any type of individual you want to see. I can't think of the word, but the diversity is what I'm talking about. And the Village of Mamaroneck represents the true melting pot concept of America. And the best part is we all get along. And it's really amazing. We just represent what is the best. You can go to any block party and you can see people walking up and down, and they do it. And those are the same ones that volunteer. And one of the committees shows you how it even goes further is the Committee for the Environment. Now, we were one of the first communities to ban plastic bags. Not very popular, but something that in the long run helps preserve what we talked about before is the Long Island Sound and Harbor Island.
No smoking in Harbor Island.
No smoking.
Policy.
We did that one.
We did that policy too.
And that was actually introduced by former trustee Andres Bermudez, who is a Democrat. And the reason I bring that up is that I will say it now and slip it in any time, and I do it as much as possible. There is no Republican, there's no Democrat or conservative independent way to run a local village. If it were up to me, I'd get rid of all the local parties. You want to run, you go out, get yourself 100 signatures, and you run as an individual and what you stand for. And Andre did a great job. It was fully supported. And the fact of the matter is, very honestly, if you went by registration, Lou and I should never get elected. It's almost 3-1 Democrat. Yet we enjoy support from the broad spectrum of the entire village. And that's because we represent the village. We never ask what party you're in or what church you belong to. Or it's ridiculous. This is America. Everybody is equal as far as I'm concerned.
You get things done when you do it on a bipartisan level, and you eliminate the opportunity for politics, and you focus on the community.
Correct.
That's how you get things done, and that's why you have been so successful with the Village of Mamaroneck. We were talking about energy before, and I think it's a great segue. Since we're talking about energy, I know you have some new lighting being installed over at streetlights. Let's talk about that a second. It's twofold.
Yeah, we're switching over everything to an LED program, and the upfront cost it's a little steep, but in the long run, down the road, we're going to be saving. I believe it's a 5-year contract with maintenance and everything like that, and it was something that was brought to us by our assistant village manager. It wasn't nothing that we rushed into. It's been on the table for quite a while, and we just passed it last month. So that's going to be
There's a safety aspect to it. It's a visual aspect, aesthetic, and there's a certain responsibility that as a member of the Board of Trustees, you have a fiduciary responsibility to save money where possible. And sometimes you spend a little money in the long run. If you think properly, you will plan correctly and you will save money, which we will do. And it's just a matter of moving forward, and it's just what we do. The same way as we noted before when we hired Sandy Corcatzis, we also hired a village planner and a village engineer. And I can tell you that one of the reasons I believe that we're continuously rated as #1, because we enact things such as the transit-oriented development, which is a continuous example of us improving the tax base in the village of Mamaroneck, and also creating new retail space and an available housing for people. The village of Mamaroneck very proudly is exempt from the HUD lawsuit in Westchester County, which is very controversial. But the village of Mamaroneck, since I was a trustee, has always had a policy that you encourage developers to have at least 10% when you have 4 units or more, to have at least, in that case, 1 unit for affordable housing. And that leads back, everything is a full circle, to the diversity. That's what will help keep your diversity. And that diversity is also what helps us continue, like the volunteer fire department. That volunteer, in fact, I didn't even let Louis do it because he's a former chief of the volunteer.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. You know, one of the only ones in Westchester County that have a fully volunteer fire department. As you know, in Portchester, you have paid drivers.
You guys have a great rating as well.
Yes, great rating, and we just purchased a brand new fire rescue truck, which hopefully will be in November, December this year. Nothing that was rushed into. It was a 5-year project on the table. One other thing, just real quickly, was when Norm and I got in 6 years ago, we instituted this policy for the fire department, actually. It's a capital improvement project.
Yeah,
We put $125,000 a year from our budget into a fund to purchase a fire truck. Right now, we have the $850,000 to purchase this fire truck. We're not going to fund no money. The money is there. Now we're starting to save for our next fire truck in 5 years. We have a program where every 5 years, one of the fire trucks will be replaced. And it's great.
Ladder truck that we
purchased also.
And that's being proactive.
Yeah.
Okay. A reactive board would not take the opportunity to put money aside year after year. This is a savings account.
Right.
And then when it comes time to purchase that fire apparatus, they pay for it cash.
And we're still under the 2% budget every year, even with that $125,000 that we're
Correct.
putting away.
And you should be applauded for that, because that's responsible budgeting, and that's the way that we can continue to go forward in the village of Mamaroneck to have good fiscal constraints. Let's also talk about communication, working together with your concerned citizens. The Washingtonville residents over there in the Heights. What's happening up there?
There's different areas of the village have different organizations, and the mayor and I, we've sat down with numerous of them.
Yeah, almost everyone,
and listened to them, and accomplishments, complaints that they had, brought it to the police department, whether it's the building department, the village manager, DPW, and we've been following it through. I can tell you, we get emails and texts all day long, stuff that's going on in the village, different parts of the village, whether it's good or bad, and we respond. And they say, like, don't you guys have a job? Don't you guys work? And I'm like, one was just this past Sunday, and somebody said, what's going on in the park up in Harbor Heights on Warren Avenue? And we said, before I can answer, the mayor answered her, and then somebody wrote and said, it's Sunday afternoon. What are you bothering these guys for?
Right.
But it's just a common thing. You know, being in office, it's just.
But as an example, and at least other things, in the Heights that we were talking about this summer, we had a couple of meetings with people that were concerned, called us up. I'm sure you're familiar with the zombie properties. It's a big deal now to trying to pass state legislation, which they should. And I'm sure that Cuomo will pass it, but and it's all over the village. It's not just
we have 18 properties.
We had one when we first started. I used to call it the Plywood House on Orienta Avenue, and it took several years, but finally was fixed up. We have a program where the village of Mamaroneck will identify a property. We have about 27 to 28 now on the list. We will go by if the grass is too high. It's over, I think it's 18 inches.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll do it before that, and we will have private contractor go in, cut the grass, clean the place up, and then we put a lien on the property. It's a responsibility of making sure that people invest in their own homes, that the neighbors can enjoy their homes without looking at this, or even have a dangerous situation. There's one house in the Heights we looked at had a pool, so it was a danger for the kids and so on. And we're glad to say that with enough push, and again, coordination with the people, and everything else. It was fixed up, it was maintained, and eventually was sold, which is good.
Just sold, yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Which is great. And then in Washingtonville, as I mentioned before, the transit-oriented development, while it's certainly a positive step forward for the village of Mamaroneck, it's great. People that are there have legitimate concerns, because if I live there, and I'm very familiar with the area, I was there as a kid all the time. Well, what about flooding, and what about traffic, and so on? Well, those were addressed. Nothing's going to be perfect. All the answers aren't there, but at least they had a chance to come and address the board, and they will be addressed as
they
those
came
developments
numerous
go on.
times, to our meetings and special meetings and stuff like that happen.
So, as a teaser for the second show, I know that there's a discussion about going to Washington D.C. To address some topics.
Yeah, actually, next Wednesday, I'm going down to actually work with the Army Corps of Engineers. The local Army Corps of Engineers is making the presentation for flood mitigation program. This is the third Army Corps of Engineers study. I firmly believe that while as government works, it may take several years to do it, but we are now at the end of stage one, which is which plan you're going to do. And it's very exciting. For the first time in as long as I can remember being involved in the village of Mamaroneck, even from as a kid, the weather's getting worse. El Nino, Hurricane Sandy, I don't believe is a unique one-time thing. It's going to happen again. And again, it's our responsibility, and I'm very excited to go down and speak and work with the Army Corps of Engineers to actually start something to accomplish.
Just one thing to wrap up with Norm. The Army Corps last year when Schumer came to the village and we did a presentation, we walked down to Columbus Park, and he said to us, we're the only community that was funded 100% by the federal government in the United States last year for this project. So we have a good feeling that this project's going to move forward. The funding will be there, and it's going to take a few years, but it's going to be the right thing to do for the village. And
the funding should be there. The funding should be there for the village of Mamaroneck because you are in a unique situation. The low-lying property, the water table is very high in this area. So it's the responsible thing to do is to protect our communities. You know, the whole purpose of paying taxes and having that tax money move up the line is so they can use it and bring it back down to the communities that need it. And the village of Mamaroneck needs it, and it's important that you stay strong and don't lose focus, and maintain that presence in Washington, D.C., and maybe we can send the mayor there and stir some things up and bring them back here, you know, scratching and screaming, but make them listen to you.
Absolutely. It's not only that. Actually, I would note for the public, I've been invited, one of 30 public officials in the Northeast to participate in what's called the Rising Tide in the state of New Hampshire. And it's about the flooding along the entire East Coast, and mainly what happened in the rest of the states in the Northeast. And it shows it's a concern all the way around. So it's something that we're on top of. We're very aware of it, and we will continue to fight the good fight.
One other thing on that note too is when we got in 6 years ago into office, there was no dredging being done. We incorporated a dredging program now that's funded every year through the budget. We identify high silt areas, and they go in, they clean it. And we can honestly say in the last 2 to 3 years where we've been really strong with those areas, we had minimal flooding. We had some street flooding, but
again,
you know,
being proactive.
Yes, and working with the town of Mamaroneck also with it.
We actually could point to 4 specific times that we actually prevented flooding. And again, as you said, working with the town of Mamaroneck, they dropped the reservoir and so on. But it's the dredging. Look, the idea is very simple. You want to get the water to the harbor as fast as possible. And that's what actually this Army Corps of Engineers is going to do. They're going to widen the rivers. They're going to deepen the rivers. And the latest one is they're going to put a little culvert under the parking lot in Jefferson Avenue parking lot to get the water to the rest of the Mamaroneck River going down to the harbor.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to cut you off, but I have to cut you off. We're getting the cue here.
Already?
Yes.
We got through the list.
Exactly right. So again, on behalf of the candidates, Lou Santoro and Norman Rosenblum, I want to thank everyone here in the village of Mamaroneck for watching our program. Also want to thank LMC-TV. Outstanding job they do by giving us this opportunity here. I also want everyone to stay tuned. Show number 2 is going to be coming up in a few weeks, and we look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you.